We can't do spring fragrances without also sharing very affordable spring fragrances. I already did the 20 designer niche fragrances that are a little bit more high-end, and these are gonna be my 20 spring fragrances under $50. Most of these are actually under $30. Hello, my gorgeous ones. Welcome to Alicia Budget Beauty. My name is Alicia. Here on my channel, I love all things affordable fashion, beauty, and fragrance. I do hauls, tutorials, reviews, affordable fragrance suggestions seasonally, all sorts of fun stuff. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe, stick around, be a friend. All right, you guys, so yes, I already did the video on the little bit more expensive fragrances for spring. In that video, I said that I just didn't want to stress about trying to pare it down to just 20 out of my entire collection. So I decided to do 20 a little bit higher end, and then 20 of my more affordable options, also some Middle Eastern options in here. And I'm excited because I think a lot of these, just like in the other video, are not ones that you hear about that often, that no one else is talking about, some hidden gems even. I try to select fragrances that I either hadn't showed you, maybe I've shown you one or two of these before, but I left out fragrances that I have a bunch within that brand. So like my Dua collection, or my Juliana's perfumes, my Britney Spears, even my Le Monde Gourmand, because I either already have videos on those fragrances already, or I plan on showing you those. So I try to just pick ones that maybe you haven't seen before. So let's go ahead and get into it. We have Rachel Zoe's Wild. This is Rachel Zoe, the designer. She used to have a reality show. I think she also has a subscription box as well. But on a whim one day, I saw a different one of hers. I think it was the Python looking one, and was looking at all of her fragrances on Fragrantica, and this one just kind of spoke to me. The Peacock, I thought it was really, really pretty. This is a huge bottle. I think this is 100, no, it's 100 mil. It looks like it'd be 120 because it's so big, but it's 100 mil. Still a really large bottle. And this is a really easy, fruity floral fragrance. Heavy on the fruity, though. This actually reminds me a lot of Burberry Her. If you're a fan of Burberry Her, I think that you would like this a lot. Very sweet, sweetened berries, sugar. There's definitely some like ambrox going on in here. So it just smells, I don't think it's strawberry, I think it's raspberry, but it almost smells like you can't put your finger on it. It's some sort of sweet berry, sugary, warm amber. That's what I basically get out of this. Not extremely complicated. Like I said, pretty sweet. If you're a fruity sweet girl, I think this will be a great affordable spring option for you. All right, my next one is actually, I think, the most expensive of the bunch, and it is, I think, $47 on Amazon. And this is actually a designer, a Spanish designer. In my higher end, I had one on there as well. I think it was a little bit more expensive, not too much. It's still a pretty affordable designer fragrance as well. And so this one is under 50, so I included it in this one. But this is by Loewe, the Spanish designer Loewe. And this is Quizás. 3 quizás. I'll just call it quizás for now. But it's this cute little purple bottle. I think this is another one that I just, as I do sometimes, just skimming fragrances on Amazon, Fragrantica, wherever I can find, I'm always looking at them. And I started looking at the notes and I thought, well, that sounds kind of interesting. There's a lot going on there. I actually like this a lot. It actually reminds me a lot of the Hermes Barenia. If you guys know that fragrance, it came out towards the end of 2024, I think, and it was pretty popular, still pretty popular, much more expensive than this. I did declutter that fragrance and gave it to a friend who we do a lot of fragrance exchanges. Hi, Janelle, if you're watching, I hope you're enjoying your Barenia. But this kind of has that same tart berry fruit patchouli thing going on with it, but I feel like the patchouli is toned down a little bit more in this. And that fragrance, the Barenia, has this, I think it's called magic berry, it's something berries that I never heard of. I think it's like a made up berry, but this has some berries in as well, red berries to it, and the lemon. So you get this like real tart and deep richness, like contrast with the berry and the lemon, and you have some cassis as well. And then it's the honey and the musk in this that I think works really well and kind of balances the patchouli and the earthiness going on. It's kind of got this really interesting muskiness, and I find it pretty addictive. It's very unique. I've never really, other than the Barinia, and I remember when I smelled the Barinia, I said, I've never smelled anything like this, and I wanted to love it, I just didn't. This has that same, if I've never smelled the Barinia, I would have been like, oh, I've never smelled anything like it, but they are similar. So if you want to kind of in the same category, but cheaper, Kisses, like I said, it's under $50 on Amazon. Really good little find, really good little gem. It also kind of has a bit of a early to 2010 sort of vibe to me of fragrances. I say that because a friend I had growing up's mom kind of smelled like this, and I don't know what perfume she wore, but this kind of takes me back to that time. So I really highly recommend it. Kisses, Kisses, Kisses. Now my next one I also think is a fantastic little affordable gem. I have another one by this brand that I think is phenomenal. I didn't include it in this because it's a little deeper and richer. It is a much better version of Flower Bomb, that other one. But this is Cabotine's Rosalie, and it's such a cute little bottle for what, you guys, I think I paid $15 to $20 for this. I believe on LaBelle Perfumes is where I got this the cheapest. And this is an outstanding violet fragrance. So you do have to really like a violet, a purpley sort of floral. You also have some almond in here, so that's already like some powderiness going on, but it is not a baby powder sort of vibe. It is a kind of light and airy purple floral, and then you also have a really beautiful sweetness going through this as well that gives it almost a candied violet sort of scent. It has ever so slight something going on that is a little bit vintage without smelling old, but it doesn't smell like a current fragrance. To me, this smells like a lot of my favorite fragrances are from the 90s or the early 2000s that have violet, because I love violet, and violet is playing in the same sort of way in this fragrance. Even though I think this came out around 2014, it's giving me late 90s, early 2000s violet, like a Paco Rabanne sort of a vibe. I think it's fantastic, but again, you have to be kind of a violet, that era as well. Early 2000s, late 90s, I think, to really appreciate it, but I love it. That is Cabotine Rosalie. All right, next up we have another kind of, could go in the category of designer from early 2000s, but it's much cheaper. This is a Marina de Bourbon fragrance. You guys know that I love the Princess, the Diamond Princess one. I think that one's fantastic. This is called Princess Style. Number one, the bottle is just so pretty. Doesn't this look like it looks like a vintage designer fragrance to me. Kind of almost looks like when candy wrappers are like this, but this is a juicy pear fragrance with some black currant. You also have some warmth of amber in here, a little bit of florals. It has a very kind of Lancome, Viktor and Rolf kind of vibe, but I just kind of find some of these more obscure French brands that are designer and maybe more expensive in France, but for whatever reason they're cheaper over here. I feel like they do the fragrances that are so popular, are number one, they're tops whenever you search the number one designer fragrances over here, and I think that they all are overplayed and just not that great, not blended well. It's like they do those type of fragrances so much better and kind of smoother and not as screechy. So this is for my designer girls that love that sort of Lancome profile, your Victor and Rolf, but you don't want to spend a lot of money. I think this is a fantastic little hidden gem, and it is beautiful to look at. All right, this next one is for my clean girlies that don't want something too fruity, not in your face floral. You want that clean, just got your clothes out of the laundry smell. This is Modern Minimalist by H&M. Extremely affordable. We're talking $10, and then if you get it with the coupons like I did, it was $6. And I think that the blue color is really pretty and fresh looking. And this is like your dryer sheets, like that's what this smells like to me. You have to kind of like that Gain sort of smell, like the Tide. It really does kind of smell detergent like, but it's very crisp. I like the eucalyptus in it. I can really smell like the cotton vibe in this. This is like a buttoned up white shirt sort of girl scent. So if you like that, like clean girl musk dryer, straight out of the dryer, your clothing fragrance, you are gonna absolutely love Modern Minimalist. Now this fragrance I have talked about before, but it's been a little bit, it hasn't been in the last like month or two, but this is Paris Corners Kale. And this is the one that I dispelled the notion that this was supposed to be a Parfums de Marly Valaya dupe, because it's not. This is more, again, of your fresh, light, airy, very smooth, subtle citrus with some like cedar elements going on. It smells a lot like light blue, but less of that harsh citrus in it. I also don't feel like it smells as dusty as that fragrance. It smells like a newer version of it. This is one that I've heard so many people say that when they read the notes or they knew the vibe of it, they thought that they wouldn't like it because it wasn't their thing, but it's like the one of this type that they actually love. There's just a smoothness to it, a lightness. The atomizer is really great too, by the way. It's one that I feel like as it sits on the skin, it gets ever so slightly sweeter, because it does definitely come out with that kind of grapefruit woodiness, but not heavy. It's very light. But as it sits, it's like got a little bit of vanilla quality that just makes it ever so slightly sweeter, but it still stays very fresh. And I think this one pairs so beautifully with a ton of different fragrances. So you could layer it with more vanilla if you want it sweeter. It also pairs great with a lot of florals. Really an underrated fragrance in my opinion. All right, this was a fantastic find. A little bit harder to probably find than the rest because this was a TJ Maxx find a while back. So be on the lookout if you see it there. This is Lychee Garden. And it also says lychee and musk on it. And it's by True Fragrances. If you guys don't know True Fragrances, they are the ones that produce the Le Monde Gourmand and then a lot of the other ones that we see at TJ Maxx. Like there's all these little brands under True Fragrances. And so you kind of know what you get with these. They're inexpensive. They may only last about 3 hours, but a lot of them smell really great. And this one, whenever it first sprays out, smells kind of similar to Kaylee's Sparkling Lychee, even a tiny bit like Seven Virtues Candied Lychee. But I think there's also maybe like raspberry or strawberry going on in this. It's not solely lychee, I don't believe. But as it sits, it has ever so slight something more earthy and like garden-like that comes into play, and it's very subtle. That kind of candied tart lychee is definitely at the forefront with whatever other fruit is in this. You can't really find notes on these because they're not ones that you can just go buy online. It's all just kind of based on my nose, but there's just something else that comes into play that makes it so interesting. And this is one that also layers so nicely with other fragrances. If you have something sparkling, something with like champagne or freesia in it, something with some effervescence, I just feel like those go so well with lychee, period. So you could layer this in with it. It's a nice little find. So it could be at Marshall's too. Keep a lookout. That is Lychee Garden. Next, we have another one I have talked about recently, so I'm gonna just talk about this very quickly. You can see the video on it. It is Mix Bar's Sugared Violet. This one blew me away along with the honey milk. I was so surprised how good these were. This is not as vintagey smelling as some of the others I've talked about with Violet, and it's also not as sweet. I personally don't get a candied violet out of this. I know it says sugar violet, but there is tea in this, jasmine tea, and I think that that cuts into the sweetness. I described this in the other video as a really watery violet, like violets actually sitting in the water with like water dripping off of their petals. It's very fresh, it's very light. I feel like it's a modern take on a violet fragrance. So that is Mix Bar's Sugar Violet. Another awesome find from TJ Maxx a while back is It Girl Juice's Garden Vines. Now, I tried to look up It Girl Juices online at the time. It was really hard to find anything. I think this is probably distributed by True Fragrance. Yep, it is True Fragrance. See, like they have their hand in like all these weird other brands, but this is pretty close, but not exactly like Off the Vine by Replica. So that is the kind of garden tomato leaf fragrance that people kind of either loved it or hated it. And I was, a lot of times fragrances that people either love or hate, I'm the weirdo that's in the middle where I'm like, I see both sides. I see why people hate it. I see why people like it. I like it. I don't like love it. That's how I felt about the Replica. And I kind of wanted it because I didn't have anything like it in my collection, but I just thought it was a little too expensive to purchase something that I don't love at that price. This one I got sticker still on it, $12.99, and it has a very similar vibe to it, but I don't feel like it's as earthy as the Replica. I feel like this one is a little more wearable. It's like it has, again, I don't have the notes on this one, but it's like it has more of a, like a lime citrus going on in it that I think is really bright and fun, and it really authentically smells like a tomato vine. My parents grew some whenever I was growing up, and I remember them picking them in the summertime and bringing them in, and you can kind of smell a little bit of that soil still on there and the greenness of like the stem and the leaf on the tomato, and that's what I get out of this. Very unique and really cool to only spend $12.99 on such a niche smelling fragrance. So if you see this and you're into that type, this is It Girl Juice's Garden Vines. Okay, next up I have Mochi Glow's Strawberry Mochi. And I have several other fragrances and they're really fun. A lot of them are really sweet. This is pretty sweet, but they're based off of Asian foods, desserts. And this has that strawberry, raspberry sort of whipped cream vibe. But then there's also the steamed rice in here that I think that sort of starchiness kind of helps it not being so sweet and so basic. Like there's something kind of exotic about this that I really, really love. Fantastic, like little brand. You guys should check it out. If you love a sweet strawberry, I think you'll like it. That is Strawberry Mochi. Okay, this next one, I feel, I've shared it, I think one other time on my channel, and I feel kind of bad because it is almost identical to the one that it is duping down to the bottle and everything. This is Maison Alhambra's Minerva. It is duping Memo Paris's Marfa. I completely forgot to have Marfa in my video of the kind of more upscale niche fragrances for spring. That is one of my favorite fragrances in my whole collection. I purchased this a while back just because I was curious how close. I'm like, dang, it copies the bottle to a T. The only difference is the eye is, I think, bigger on this bottle and smaller on the OG. Otherwise, it's the same thing, and it's a heavy bottle. Big old price difference between the two. And I love this one because it's tuberose done in such a different way. So we have the tuberose can be the bubblegummy tuberose, or it can be kind of just this like tropical floral, white floral thing going on. And then you can have more of like a dry tuberose. And this has a drier element to it. It also has agave. It has some orange blossom, I think a little citrus at the top. So it's not as sweet as a lot of other tuberose fragrances. It's much more of a dry sort of floral. And give this one a shot, you guys. I'd say Marfa is a little bit harder for me to recommend because it's more expensive for one. So I would try the dupe of it. But whenever I very first got it, I thought it was kind of like a little powdery and like I wasn't sure. And then man, it wears so beautifully that it became one of my favorite fragrances in my collection. It is so gorgeous on a hot day. I cannot even tell you how beautiful it is. So I definitely recommend trying out the cheaper version, even though it kind of pains me to say that, but it doesn't last quite as long as the OG. So if you like this one, get the OG. But this is Minerva by Maison Alhambra. Okay, I haven't talked about this one in a while. I do have a video on this from when it kind of first came out. This is Wildly Me by Florence Mills, which is Millie Bobby Brown's brand, if you guys don't know. And when I did the review on this, I was like shocked, and I still kind of am. Well, actually, no, I take that back because now I know more about her. I love her, you guys. I listened to a podcast interview with Millie Bobby Brown not that long ago. The girl is so young, like 21, and she is such an old soul. And now it makes sense to me why this fragrance is so kind of mature, because when this came out, I think she was like 19, and I thought, how is this her fragrance? I love it, but it's not a young girl fragrance, I don't think. This is a very, very aromatic fragrance, like clary sage and lavender. You also have purples, iris, violet, wisteria. You have woody notes in it. It is just not at all what I imagined a 19-year-old girl's brand coming out with. But now that I know she's an old soul, it does make sense. I think this is the perfect fragrance for anyone that just doesn't like a lot of perfumey fragrances. Like if you don't like in your face fruits, sweetness, you don't like the patchouli, you don't like the depth, like you just want something, something of the earth, but with still some femininity to it. Wildly Me. It's a gorgeous fragrance, you guys. Just so surprising still to me. And I believe the reason, I think this is towing the line of that $50. So this might be my most expensive one actually in here, but you can get this at Ulta and get it on sale and it be under, I believe that's why I included it in this. So that is Wildly Me by Florence Mills. All right, you guys, next we have Finery's Flower Bed. And surprisingly, I think I still haven't smelled all the Finery, like I haven't smelled the newer ones. I still think this is my favorite, and I was really surprised it was my favorite. But this is a perfect, gorgeous spring fragrance. And a lot of people think this smells like Chance. I see the comparisons, but I kind of feel like this is its own fragrance too. I love the peony in this, and green apple and bamboo. It's light, it's fresh. Like to me, this one truly screams spring. I think out of all of the ones that I'm showing you of my more affordable ones, I think out of all 20 today, this one says spring the most to me. I think it's beautiful, super affordable. That's Flower Bed by Finery. Okay, this next one, so underrated, you guys. This is Xtina by Miss Christina Aguilera. No one ever talks about her fragrances. The newest one is one that I reviewed on Instagram and TikTok, but I don't think that I reviewed it here. That one is like a melon, fruit chili sort of fragrance that I thought a lot of people would actually like, even if it wasn't my favorite. But this one I think is so good. This is just a really pretty, fruity, kind of sweet amber fragrance. You do have some florals in here. You have violet leaf. I believe there's also patchouli in this one, but it doesn't stand out as much as the newer one. It's just a really pretty like raspberry pear. I think maybe there's some blackberry going on in here. And it's just fun. Like this is just like a fun girl fruity. This one reminds me a lot of early 2000s fragrances as well. Like maybe some Victoria's Secret fragrances that we loved. I think it's really easy. It's flirty. It's just a fruity, pretty sweet fragrance. So that is Xtina. Okay, this next one is not really on the nose spring to me. This is kind of one of those fragrances that doesn't completely fit in any category to me, but it's inexpensive, it's fun, and I think that it could work for spring. This is Betsey Johnson. The cap is bonkers, but I love it. Betsey Johnson's bonkers. And it is plastic, so I mean, this could break really easily, but it does look super cool. I'm just like holding it up or having it on display. But I credit my friend Victoria sent memos on TikTok and Instagram because she kept talking about this. I finally purchased it. I haven't been able to wear it much because again, I'm like, I really don't know when I wear this. I think this would work in the fall as well, but it also kind of works for spring and summer. But this is another fruity pear black currant concoction. You do also have praline in here, a little bit of florals, some sandalwood, some amber. It's warm, it's fruity. There is something kind of old school about this one to me. Another one that reminds me of maybe like fragrances from the early 2000s. I'm just thinking of right when I was graduating high school, going into college, first couple of years of college. That's the kind of vibe that this gives me. So it kind of takes me back to like my Y2K days. I think it's fun. She's fun. She's a little conversation starter, just looking at the bottle, and definitely one that I think that you could actually technically wear year round. Okay, this next one I think is grossly underrated. I love Love Rush by Paris Hilton so much. I think the bottle is just freaking stunning. I don't know which is my favorite of her bottles, but it honestly may be this one just because it's so sleek. And this does say like wedding. And honestly, if this one lasted a little bit longer, I would like recommend it to so many people for their wedding day. It's not the most long lasting fragrance, but you do get about 3 to 4 hours wear on it. And it is just this classic, beautiful, timeless, and it smells a little vintagey, but I also feel like you could get away with it today as well. You have some citruses at the top, you have some gardenia, some orange blossom in here, dahlia. It's definitely a floral, but there's something really smooth and almost like cream-like to this. I'm not saying that it smells like whipped cream. It's not sugary. It's just very smooth. Like the musk in this is not abrasive. It's so smooth. I just picture like the white dress, and I don't really picture a heavy crystalled white dress. I picture one that like you're getting married outside, and it's not necessarily the beach either, but it's just a really beautiful spring day, and there's a lightness, like maybe like chiffon or something, lightness to the dress, maybe even lace. It just kind of is blowing the wind, wrapping around, and that's the vibe I get from this fragrance. It is so pretty. I think my kind of vintage white floral lovers would actually like this a lot, even though again, it's not on the nose vintage. It's just like this modern classic, I think. I think it's so pretty. I just think it's so underrated. You do have to like some florals to like this, but this is Love Rush. Okay, this next little kicker here, this is Solé Notes Grenade, and this is a pomegranate fragrance. I think there's blackberry, maybe a little citrus, sandalwood, musk in here. This is so fantastic as a layering fragrance. It packs such a punch. Like, I don't know that I've smelled anything else with pomegranate. It's just not a note that comes up a whole lot. And this one is so good. It has this tart, to it, like an unripened fruit sort of a vibe. I don't know if you've ever bit into like a plum that's not ripe yet, or even like an apple that's not, like a green apple that's not ready to be picked, but you bite into it and it's kind of like sour, but you can tell like the fruitiness is developing there. That's what I get with this, and it almost has a bubbliness to it. I think it's so great as a layering fragrance. I have layered this with several different things. Like for some reason, it plays so nicely with any Ariana Grande fragrance. You just throw this in and it's like it brings some life to the party. It's great on its own too, but it's so good to layer. If you want some like zestiness, some like tartness and fun to your spring fragrances, this is a great one to have. So that is Soleil Notes Grenade. Okay, I'm gonna kind of talk about these next two at the same time. I've been meaning to talk about these for a while on my channel. I just sometimes don't get around to it. I've got so many things to film, but these are both Miss Armaf. This is Miss Armaf Chic. This is Miss Armaf Attitude. The bottles are bonkers. I just think that they're so bonkers with that like melted looking cap, and then this part comes off. Now I do also have the one in the black bottle that's really, really nice. That's a nice coffee fragrance, and my ring thing broke on that right when I got it. So like this ring part just comes off instead of the whole cap on that one. Luckily these don't do that, but these I get mixed up all the time. Even though they have different notes, and like smelling them on each arm, I don't think that they smell alike, but for some reason, neither one always sticks in my head of exactly what it smells like, and I mix them up. But the Miss Armaf Attitude is going to be your more almond, fluffy, coffee, light, white floral fragrance. It's not heavy. This is not a heavy coffee. This is your kind of citrus white floral, coffee, fluffy almond sort of vibe. I really like it. It's actually really pretty and light enough where even though it has like coffee in it, a lot of times you don't think of that as like a spring fragrance. It has those lighter white florals in it and brightness with the citrus that I think it really, like you could definitely pull it off in the warmer weather. And then this one over here, Chic, is much more fruity. You've got a lot of fruitiness going on. It's pretty sweet. You have, I believe, raspberry, pear, maybe orange. Definitely has a more like rounded sweetness to it. Like it feels a little bit denser, but then you also have some oak moss, some patchouli, some vanilla and cedar in the base that kind of like eventually that fruitiness, there's a lot of fruits going on in the beginning, that kind of tapers off and you get something, I feel like it's more wearable in the dry down. So I really like both of these. I just sometimes forget about them and I've been meaning to talk about them. I do think that they are good buys, and man, these bottles are, like I said, they're bonkers, but I think both of these are nice spring additions. Okay, my last one was another one I got at TJ Maxx a while back. I know you can get this one on Amazon. This is Murata's Perla. I also have the Verado one. That one is much more like nighttime and more fall-like in my opinion. This one I think is really pretty for spring. You have some apple, you have a little bit of floral, you have some pear, I think, and then you have some caramel and musk. I think it's really, really pretty. It almost kind of smells like a floral caramel apple. Not straight caramel apple, there's definitely florals cutting into it. But I think it's a nice little sweet one, kind of another hidden gem. Not the longest lasting either, but it's like 20 bucks on Amazon. I wouldn't expect it to be. And I think that this bottle with the charms is adorable. That's it, you guys. Those are my 20 affordable spring fragrances under $50, mainly under $30. You guys have to let me know which ones you're interested in. I thank you so much for watching. And as always, have fun shopping, budget shopping, and smelling fabulous. Bye.